I would request Dr. Swami to initiate the discussion and give us an update on the latest on the Sushant Singh Rajput murder mystery. Over to Dr. Swami.
Well, let me start first with the Sushant Kumar Singh Rajput's matter. He died under unusual circumstances, and that's why it's called an unnatural death. The police immediately declared it without even sealing the apartment or doing even the modicum of investigation, that it was suicide. The Home Minister, who has no business in this matter, also declared it's a suicide. And the autopsy, however floppy it was or however sloppy it was, only said that it is asphyxiation due to hanging. And that could mean somebody hanged him and suffocated him, asphyxiated him. So that's an open thing. And of course, there have been a lot of other minuses in the autopsy report. The date or the time, estimated time of his death, which is mandatory to fill, was not filled. So that matter is being now looked at by the AIMS special team, and we'll get a pretty clear picture maybe in a week's time about what really happened after their testing of the whole thing. Now, the question is this, that a person is found dead under very unusual circumstances, and therefore it's a natural death. Whatever may be the thing, whether it's suicide, whether it's murder or assisted suicide or accidental murder or whatever, the fact is that that is called a cognizable offense, and which under section 156 of the CRPC, the police is obliged without any delay to register an FIR. And the Bombay police has not yet even registered an FIR. And it is now probably 71, 72 days. June 14th to now would be about that much. So, therefore, why is the Bombay police so reticent to take this to its logical conclusion? And that's why the Supreme Court had to intervene and said, for the perception of impartiality and seriousness, we are transferring this case to the CBI. Now, the CBI is in the process of investigation, and the process is by extensive, questioning. They have not reached the stage of what they call as custodial interrogation, and that means you put the person, the suspect person, in a room, and then just don't let her go or him or her go until the full questioning is over. It's very intensive. You may not even be able to sleep, so that you lose all the defense mechanisms in trying to evade questions. So I think that that process is on. It's possible that they may do a lie detector test for some of the witnesses. And it's going systematically. So I am not of the view that, we're taking too much time and so on. That's not on it. The autopsy report also should be out in a week's time. We'll probably only confirm the main conclusion that it is asphyxiation. There's no doubt there was asphyxiation. There was a belt lying, dog's collar belt, and somebody seems to have used that. So anyway, the reconstruction process is on. Now, what has come out very clearly is that a femme fatale or a Vishkanya suddenly drops into the life of a very flourishing actor called Sushant. Also an intelligent man. He qualified in the All India competitive exam to get into the Delhi School of Engineering. He got a rank of 7. And he had a great interest in artificial intelligence and many other things. He was not just an ordinary actor, but he was shining as an actor and seemed to be independent of the mafia that controls the Bollywood's projections, which actor will go to which cinema and so on. And this apparently seems to have upset some of the dadas. And since money laundering takes place, prostitution, brown sugar, all these drugs, all these things are now prevalent in Bollywood. So these all are really connect them to the nearest point where this is a center point, which is Dubai and the Dawood gang. And we have seen that cinema actors have been frequently visiting Dubai and even attending parties of, if not Dawood Ibrahim, his lackeys. So there is now a feeling amongst not only CBI, but also amongst the Enforcement Directorate, which deals with money laundering, and the Narcotics Bureau, which feels that the base of spreading narcotics in southern India and starting with Maharashtra is the cinema world. And so extraordinarily, it's not only CBI investigating, it's also ED is investigating. And on top of that, there is a investigation by the Narcotics Bureau. And it's possible that very soon we will have an NIA, National Intelligence Agency, investigating agency, which is a special agency comparable to more than the FBI of the United States. It has more powers, it has sweeping powers. And so they may also be brought in because there is a general feeling in the country that Bollywood should be liberated from the mafia, and that people of talent should be able to come and be judged on the basis of their reception of the audience, the cinema-going audience, and not be a subservient to a clique. The three Khan brothers, whose names everybody knows, they have been part of this gang up. People like Mahesh Bhatt, whose son was involved in the 2611 with David Headley. And I don't know how he escaped. Maybe Bombay police didn't do diligence. So there are a number of them. Then there are narcotic agents. But in the end, the vehicle by which Sushant was captured was a female called Riya Chakrabarti. And Riya Chakrabarti is, as background clearly shows, anybody investigating will find out that she is not just an innocent girl who is straight into the cinema. She seems to have a network. She has herself said that Mahesh Bhatt is her godfather, and she has, some of the tapes of our conversation has come as to how much reverence she has for him. And she entered the life of Sushant at his peak. Compared to the previous stages, he was, of course, to go even further up before he was killed. But she entered around April of 2019 and left him on around June 8th of this year. During this time, she began to have progressively very, very dangerous influence on Sushant. She brought him into drugs. She was a great drug supplier. Now she has been caught lying that she had nothing to do with drugs. And that's why the Narcotics Bureau is also going to investigate her. I won't be surprised in the next 2-3 days she's also arrested and then taken for custodial interrogation. There's enough ground for that. But the decision has to be taken by the CBI. I mean, I'm not suggesting that they should do it. I think that from the way it has gone, I think that would be probable in the next 2-3 days. And the drug dealers have all been identified who have been partying with these cinema actresses, sometimes arranging for politicians to sleep with some of them. All these sordid things have been going on in Bombay. So now, why was Sushant targeted? Because he was independent. And they tried to stop all his contracts. And then he came, he found a lady, I think called Disha, who was was part of a corporation which arranged for programs. And she had drawn up a list of engagements for him in cinema acting. And he was very confident. And then on 8th, he learned that she fell off the 11th floor of the apartment building where she was staying. And that seems to have shattered him, naturally, because his career prospects in terms of business, I think, would also be getting terminated. So he was super depressed. And this lady seems to have realized that that by giving him some drugs in the tea or orange juice or whatever, she could probably push him over the brink. And then she quietly left on just after Disha's unnatural death. So I think Mr. Sushant was by that time, by 13th, 14th, he was already programmed to become irrational, because he was drugged. In drug you lose your senses, and then something happened in which the people found him dead. And some of the things that I said is that his leg was broken, that he had scars on his neck, which has got nothing to do with the hanging towel or whatever, pajama or whatever. And there was also the question of the height. He was almost 6 feet tall. And the difference between the bed where he was standing, the bed was under the fan, and the fan is not sufficient for him to hang. So all those are things which will be part of the trial. But the question is, what happened? The police was informed, and they arrived, and they didn't seal the building. Why? They sealed the apartment. Why? That's the first thing you have to do. Then this is put in an ambulance and taken to 11 kilometers away to this Cooper Municipal Hospital. And there's a delay of autopsy, because one of the doctors, 5 doctors, said that they had instructions from the police that should be delayed. That has to be put on record now. But one of the problems of delaying postmortem is that if there is poison in your stomach, then it goes into the bloodstream, and or it gets ejected. So therefore, you will not discover poison if it's done after 6 hours. I'm sure that was going to come in the autopsy report of the All India Medical Institute Board. But the biggest surprise was that the first thing you have to fill after doing a postmortem is the estimated time of death. That's an estimated time, but it is an estimate. It's a mandatory in the form. And that's been left blank. Why? Because then you would have discovered that it arrived at this time, and then the postmortem was done at another time. And then there'll be questions. Why was this delay? And the doctors would come under suspicion. So I'm not saying the doctors are complicit, but they could have been frightened. I don't know. Because they never thought all this will get so much central attention. Nobody thought, probably. And now the thing that is being done is, I think the CBI is now clear that not only Sushant died under mysterious circumstances, but that there has been a string of such things in the last 20 years. And some of them has been quoted to young stars that you will end up like that. Parveen Babi is an example that Mahesh Bhatt keeps quoting. So and therefore there is terror. There is links with people in Dubai, which is unacceptable for any art in our country, and therefore the plots and the themes of cinemas are basically aimed at Indian culture. And what I feel is that now with these three agencies, they're looking at the big picture and arising out of what happened to Sushant. And probably if this went on without political interference, the drug mafia in Bollywood would be eliminated. Because from this Riya Vaishkanya, you can trace back to all the dadas, some of those names have already come in the TV, but some of those names have not come. So I think we should consider this as a momentous turning point in our cultural history and possibility of leading to a clean art form called Bollywood. And maybe Bollywood should be transferred either. Why should Bollywood be where the capital is, as well as the financial capital is? So everybody gets corrupted, everybody enjoys the loose life. And there have been stories about ministers and their sons partying in Bollywood. We'll know soon. Their names will probably come out. But I think the effect on the youngsters who look at these people as role models would be a devastating effect, and it will ruin our culture. It will ruin our youngsters' mind makeup. So therefore, having mistresses is now become very common there. He was living with them, he was carrying on with that, then he threw her out, and she threw him out. All this is, the family system will go to pieces. So for cultural renaissance, I think we must get to the bottom of this and all the big picture. And the prosecution should lead to a situation where all the key players in this dirt game, this sin game, are prosecuted, and Bollywood then becomes a genuine art form and is clean. So this is what I would like to say in the beginning. I'm sure some of you also have opinions. Let me hear your opinions, then we can all together have a discussion.
Okay. Dr. Swami, more of a question. I mean, what I see when you talked about the way the Bombay police has completely bungled up this whole investigation / even evidence, but from a mere looking at it, they've consistently broken the chain of evidence. One, they've destroyed evidence. So based on this, how can the case proceed? Are these two important for any prosecution legally?
Well, you see, the question will be, this happened with me with the Sunanda case. But Sunanda case is much worse than here. Sunanda case, the Congress was in power, and a Congress minister's wife dies under mysterious circumstances. And they tried to make out that she has committed suicide. And she has swallowed some extra tablets, something or the other, alcohols. And fortunately, the post-mortem comes to Sudhir Gupta, who is now the chairman of the board here. And he doesn't budge. He says, no, she's died of poisoning. There's poison in the system. It is not a suicide by herself. There is something. There are marks. There are all kinds of injury marks, teeth marks, so many things. You see, I've seen the video of that postmortem. Somebody gave it to me, and that clearly shows that she was subjected to violence before her death. And of course, the closed circuit TV, like here also, in Sushant's case also, was out of order. And ultimately, what happened is that the Delhi police found that Sunanda Pushkar's BlackBerry was completely cleaned up. and it found that the number 2 man in Delhi police, some Gogoi or something, or Gagia or something, like that name, he had given this back to Mr. Shashi Tharoor, who was a prime suspect. And then he returned it. It was all cleaned up. And similarly, the room was also, there'd been violence, there would be things broken, all that and been cleaned up. And those pieces were later found from the garbage cans. So what happened is that Delhi police was smart. And they said, we will not say at this stage murder. We will say it is a suicide, but it was assisted suicide or enforced suicide. And then after the court issued the warrant for Mr. Tharoor and he took bail, then now the Delhi police says that we have found that these evidences were destroyed. Now we have reconstructed it. So we want a murder charge. So I would say that supposing they have messed up the evidence to such an extent that you can't outright say this is murder, my view is that the Delhi police strategy should be adopted. It should say assisted suicide or something like that. And I'm just now going too far ahead. I'm not even don't know the whole picture. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they had an FIR for murder. But I would like people not to press the CBI to go faster, do it quicker. So because in the Arushi case, this poor CBI was completely bowled over by the public opinion, and they made a big mistake, and for which they were pulled up in the Supreme Court and so on. Now, ultimately, it was rectified, and the killers were found, and they have been sentenced to life imprisonment. So here, I don't think the evidence has been destroyed. I think the botch-up itself is clear. There's this Sandeep Singh. He emerges from nowhere. He is now known as a drug peddler. He is known as Dawood's man. There are pictures of him, I think, with the CBI, which shows that he, with some lady, he had met Dubai. In Dubai, he met Dawood, all that. So they're like that. Then there's Ajaz Khan, who's seen in every cocktail party in Bollywood, who's another drug peddler. And this lady herself is not just an actress. She is she sells or provides these medicines in the name of medicines, all these narcotics. So I think there is enough to say that the whole deterioration came with this lady, and then this lady also siphoned off some of his money. How much I can't say just now. And therefore, I think this will lead to either in 2 stages or 1 stage, the murder by a cartel in which various people were conspirators and come to a conclusion.
One other follow-up, Dr. Swamy. See, all in TV, they're throwing up a lot of evidence saying that, oh, this is my WhatsApp chat, that's my audio chat. This is typically evidence, right? When you put this evidence out in the public, when the investigation is on, or it's in the early stage when the CBI is doing, is that going to prejudice any part of the investigation or jeopardize the investigation?
No, these guys, the CBI, ED, and the AIMS team, they're all hard-boiled. And the Narcotics Bureau is a lot of intelligent people are in it. And they've got photographic memories also. And so I think, you see, I had only asked for a CBI inquiry in the beginning, and then it went to court, and the court gave the CBI. I mean, I didn't go to the court, but others went. The parents' lawyers went, and of course, we have to thank Nitish Kumar. I phoned him up and said, this FIR has been registered in Patna, but why don't you hand it to the CBI? He said, the parents asked me, I'll do it tomorrow. So the parents did ask, and he did it. And so that was challenged by this Ria herself, and she lost, and the CBI was ordered. Now, none of these people are going to be influenced by anything that comes outside. And you see, I want to say one thing. This country is still living in the past about outsiders not discussing what's happening in court. Originally, the concept of sub judice was in Britain, where, and of course the Americans today, Americans are still continuing with that system, where murder trials were decided, the outcomes were decided by a jury on majority vote. And the jury is, Ramesh, you are from America, and they take the out of telephone directories. They have people who have no knowledge of the law. And the jury then meets and discusses and comes to a conclusion. So there, if somebody does a propaganda outside, it could influence the jury.
Right.
But here there's no jury. There is a prosecution, there is a defense, and there is a judge. Who's going to be influenced by your propaganda? Unless you get nervous because the propaganda is getting too close to the truth. If it's all false, they should be enjoying it. So I think this is a way of thinking how to, let this just fade away. The only way it can fade away is that the media does not, if the media does not cover it.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
after that, the media not supplemented our efforts, mine, Ishkaran and others. I don't think that we would have reached this stage at all, where the cleanup of the Bollywood is around the corner.